Hi, everyone. This is Mary Kwiatkowski and Sasha Joseph with RHAP, getting ready to speak with the most recent person eliminated from episode 3 of NBC's new travel competition show, Destination X. If you haven't watched the show yet, make sure you check that out and then come back for the interview. Of course, you should also check out our coverage of the episode recaps over on WeKnowDestinationX.com. Okay, today we are sadly talking with Rachel. Rachel, we're so sad to see you go.
Me too. I had so many cute clothes I didn't get the chance to off. I was like, oh man, like I really was banking on staying for a longer time because I didn't even get to show off my cutest stuff. So it's not to be the most sad about, but it is.
That's one thing I felt the whole time was, wow, you really have just such a fun aesthetic and set of outfits and hair and personality and everything.
It's
Even now.
Yeah.
yeah, it's one of those things I think they call it, what is it, like dopamine dressing? Like how can you
hmm
be in that mood? Like when you look cute, when your house is cute. So my whole life has just been like, let me just like make the colors I wear very bright and happy because who can be depressed when you're like trying to be cute?
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, it seems like that wasn't rubbing off on everyone else in the game, but that would have been great. So first off, for the first season of a brand new show, it must have been tough to know what to expect. Did you come into the game with any kind of game plan or strategy based on what you knew of what the game was going to be?
I am a huge fan of reality TV in general. So I was like, if it's anything like any show I've ever seen, ever, of course, there's always going to be an element of what you can't bank on and what you can't know. But my whole strategy was like, just be friendly with everybody. And I didn't want to make any alliances until I knew I could trust people. The issue is, very quickly, you can see I can't trust anybody. So that was really hard for me to make alliances, especially once I realized nobody's keeping their end of the promise. So I think that was a gameplay that I should have been more assertive in and wish I had prepped better at how to build better alliances because it is a game. It's a social game. As much as it is knowing where you are, it's also you're dictated by who likes you and who doesn't.
hmm
No, I hear that. And that was something we chatted about a lot as well. Like, how do alliances shape right information? Because information is currency in the game. And I'd love to hear, yeah, a little bit more about your alliances or lack of, maybe because you had a clash with Rick right after this really beautiful moment on the helicopter. And then right, we end up at the Swiss Chalet, and we see a little bit of you, saying and saying your feelings to Rick. And how did that like tension even come about? And then how did that affect you feel like you're standing in the group?
Yeah, up until that point, I thought Rick and I were so close. Like from the very beginning, I really liked Rick. He had like dad vibes. We talked about his wife and his kids, and I felt like we were good. And then he chose me and Allie for that challenge, and I was like, yes, this is great. Like we won. It was amazing. We're in the helicopter, and I'm like, good. Like I can trust Rick. Like Rick is, he's gonna be somebody I can trust what he's doing. And then when I find out he's telling the guys all this information, I was really hurt. I was like, bro, what the hell? Like, we just promised we weren't going to tell anybody, and you lied to my face. And I can't trust you at that point. So that's when I found out the reason I felt so heated is because I found out that moment that he had.
Oh,
Because Biggie
Gotcha.
said, Shane already knows where we are. And then you see Rick telling them on the bus, being like, come here. Let me tell you this. Let me tell you where we are. I was like, oh my gosh. F you, Rick. So then at that point, I'm like, nope, can't trust you either. Just add you to my list, but can't trust anybody but yourself.
Yeah. So we did see though that you started to kind of form a bond with Ty in this episode, and you were even potentially talking about maybe like a girls' alliance with Mac as well. How did you feel about those relationships?
From the get-go, I knew that even though me and the girls didn't have like a real alliance, I really felt like it was kind of like girls take care of the girls share kind of what we know with the girls. And of course, as the game progresses, that might change. But for now, like there's safety in the numbers of just the girls being together. And so it kind of was my plan to just make sure the girls were safe, taken care of, and I thought they would do the same for me. So Ty and I were close. We had a lot of late night talks, just all the girls on that side of the bus. And so I felt like I really could trust her.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
speaking of that though,
exactly.
um, when Ty ended up telling you that she thought her clues were leading to Can, were you leaning in that direction already, or did that change your mind? And then after the fact, did you think, oh my gosh, Ty lied to me, or how did all that break down?
Can did not even cross my mind one single time, but the clues made so much sense, right? Can dance, can film festival. So I was like, oh, that is so on the nose. It has to be. You know what I mean? It was like, these are such specific clues, then this has got to be the right place. So I didn't have any doubt in my mind. And even looking back and watching it, I feel the same way that I felt in the moment. I don't think Ty was trying to mislead me, misdirect me. I liked Ty. Ty and I are still friends. Ty is visiting over today. So, like, we're friends. All us girls are friends. I don't think anything was done with like ill intent. You just have to remember it's also a game. And I've known you
Mhm.
people for 6 days and I'm trying to win $250,000. So, you always just have to know you can be moral and honest to an extent because this is the game and we're all trying to win money at the end of the day.
Yeah. So speaking of that, right? Like speaking of this girls' alliance, because I think we saw a little bit more. And listen, Mary and I, big TV watchers, and we beg for a girls' alliance, right? Like any
One
crumb,
day.
we're praying that it comes through. So why do you think maybe ultimately, right? Like the save wasn't used on you?
I think Ty knew in her mind that we knew where we were. She was going to share
Mhm.
that information with me. She and Shane won those clues together, right? And it's tricky because you see the same thing with Allie and Mac in the first episode. Like once you win a challenge with somebody, there's this like unspoken like, okay, well, we have to benefit each other in this because we kind of did it together. And I also didn't realize that Ty and Shane were in an alliance either. I had no idea. And so I, in my head, was like, she's either going to save me or she'll at least tell me where we are, which, she did. It just was wrong.
That's
So,
fair. Yeah. Thank you.
considering you were on in such close quarters on this bus, um, I assume that the kind of showmance happening was pretty visible to everyone. What were your thoughts on that?
But it was because I'm like, we are here on a mission to win a game, and you cannot let a dusty man, not that he's dusty, I just mean men in general,
Period. Yes.
general are dusty, you can't let anybody get in the middle of you in gameplay because of course that's gonna. And Ali kept saying like, oh, like of course, like it's just for fun. I'm not gonna share clues with him. And I don't know, like I still don't know to the extent, Ali shared things with him or like didn't share things with him because she's a smart player. Like Ali, that's the thing I don't think as many people see on the show. Ali is super intelligent. Like I think she actually is probably if not the one of the smartest people on that bus, which you don't see as much of. So even though I was like, I don't like that, at least I was like, but she's a smart girl. She hopefully won't let that dictate her gameplay. And I don't know if it did, but I don't think that it did.
Were
Yeah,
there
that's
any other alliances that you saw or like people who were generally talking together?
To be honest with you, me and Rick and Kim, I think we all felt like, oh my, are they friends without us? Are they having conversations without us? Like, I would be upstairs and I could like hear this like chatter downstairs. I'd be like, what's that? What are you guys talking about? Because I would want to be in on it and I could kind of feel like I wasn't, right? There's an energy, right? Like people have social clues. If you kind of walk into a room and you can tell people have been, talking about you or the game, and then they all shut up. Like I'm not dumb. So I could feel that I wasn't being included in those. And that's when I really was like, I gotta change something. I really have to like commit to somebody because I don't like this feeling.
Yeah, and is that when did you even realize rather, right? Like the folks on the outside. I would even include Mac in that foursome almost. So were there moments that the four of you, four as in you, Rick, Mac and Kim, even or whoever, did you ever try to be like, "Hey, come on, band of misfits. Let's kind of, get together on the side and figure this out."
I wanted to alliance with Mac really bad. It's something that you don't see, but I remember being like, Mac is an incredibly strong player, and I wanted to alliance with Mac. And you don't see as much of that, but Mac and I were starting to build like a good friendship. And I always, from the get go, like really, really liked Mac. And so I definitely, had I stayed, would have wanted that to be more of a thing. With Rick, I'm like, no, he did me dirty. F you. I won't,
Mhm.
like, you're dead to me. But with Mac and even Kim, because the girls had again like this kind of unspoken, spoken, like, we'll let you in on things. But I definitely 100% had I stayed, like, yeah, I would have wanted to be in an alliance with Mac and, really any of the girls.
Okay. So during the maze task and after that, was it pretty obvious that Shane and Ty had all the correct clues and that everyone else had red herrings, or was there any time when anyone thought maybe mine is a real clue?
No, because we were going through and everyone was just like fair game, like, listen, these were my clues. Because everyone else's, they didn't make sense, like the dragons. I'm not a Game of Thrones person, but they're like, that's Croatian. I was like, yeah, we're definitely not Croatia. I mean, I don't know what Croatia looks like. I don't think it's this. The other ones were like Spain and like flamingo dancing. And I was like, no, that's just none of this looks Latin to me. And so when they were going over, they didn't share their clues, but I knew based on mine. And I was pretty sure mine was like potentially Italy because of like the stairs, but I was like, yeah, but we've been there, so we're definitely not here. So I think it was clear to everybody, like, okay, they got something good, but they're not going to tell anybody.
Okay.
I,
So they weren't even they just kept it zip lips during that conversation.
wow.
Oh yeah, no, because Shane said something because they were like, "Oh, how are the clues?" He's like, "They were good," and I was like, "Oh, that's fine. Keep it to yourself." I,
Uh-huh.
but then I was like thinking with Ty, I was like, "She better tell me what they saw because I'll be really upset if she doesn't."
I love that. Oh my gosh. And I would also, speaking of the checkpoints, Mary and I were discussing, right? Were all the checkpoints equidistant from everyone? Because it felt like once you got to the first checkpoint in the maze, you were kind of almost set up to be first at every other point. So were they equidistant or was this a little bit like, you started at one point and you're kind of always going to be behind?
I have no idea, to be honest. That makes
Yeah.
time and space don't exist. I hated that challenge, to be honest with you, because I couldn't tell you where any of the checkpoints were. I don't know how we found any of them. We were just running like a bunch of cockatoos, just trying to like find anything. So, girl, I couldn't tell you. I'm just glad we got a clue.
Fair, fair.
So after you obviously had a lot of experience in the map room. After each time you went there, did did anyone discuss like where we had placed our X's the previous time to try and figure out where you were? Or was everyone kind of quiet about that as well?
Everybody, listen, you're also coming from my perspective as not being in an alliance, but from my perspective, people were sharing where they put their X. But I also know that there was a lot of misdirecting too with
Mm.
where people were putting their X as well. Because in this episode, I thought that I would be one of the only people putting my ex in France because there were a couple players that were thinking about potentially like Amsterdam based on like some of the clues. And so going into the map room, um, it was like I think Biggie and was it Rick? I think it was Biggie and Rick who both were like yeah, like, I think I'm just putting it in Amsterdam. Then I was like, number one, like, I don't trust that. But also that's great because even if I put the wrong place in France, at least I'm in France, which is so shocked when Jeffrey said my name because I'm like, so how does that track? Because it's the right country. And it was just not, people will not tell you the truth about that. Now, with other people, they could have been honest about it, but with me, they're like, we're not telling that bitch anything. So that was also a personal experience.
They won't let me at them. I'll fight them all for you. I got this.
That bus, I was so mad. I was so mad. And then you have time to cool off, and you're like, honestly, it's a game. It's a game. It's reality TV. Like, we're not there to make friends, but that's the funny thing is like all the girls on the show, like I am friends with. Like it's what's so cool about happening. Like, and if Kim didn't live in Hawaii, I would be including her. That's basically like a different planet to travel to. But like me and Mac and Allie and Ty, like we're close and I love them and I would consider them like such close good friends that it's nice that even though we couldn't really trust each other on the show, it's like, yeah, but that was a show. Like in
Right.
all reality, like we all really like each other.
Speaking of reality TV, obviously you didn't get to do much interacting, but would you have known who Peter and Janae were if you were there when they came on?
So funny. Me and my ex-husband watched Peter's season. And so like if I had been there, I would have been like totally freaking out, because I'm a huge Bachelor Nation fan. And I would have known he was like a pilot and would know stuff. So I probably would have tried to alliance there because I'm like, he travels, like he flies all the time. But that wasn't the case.
You would have been a Peter Pal. I see.
I would have been a Peter Pal, and I feel like I would have gotten a lot further had that been the case. But maybe Peter wouldn't have not wanted to alliance with me because that was kind of the trend. So
I heard that. Last question, of course, is we were noticing a lot of patterns, right? Where we're constantly going to the bus kept landing at the big cities. Was that something, you noticed, or is that, at least advice you would give to folks for season two? Yeah, we'd love to hear like any advice or if you even noticed this pattern of big cities.
yeah, that's something that I assumed in my head we would be at much more niched places. Never once did I think that we would be going to like the capital because I'm like, that's kind of obvious. Like the second you're in France, of course everyone thinks Paris. Or the second you're in Italy, the first place people think of is probably going to be Rome. And so in my head, oh baby, your bangs look so cute. In my head, I was like, they have to be more niched. So I would tell people, and now they might change that right now on season two. They're like, well, that was a little too obvious. Now we got to go back and change it. But I just would have been a lot more focused on like the main, in your face, obvious cities versus like in the first episode, trying to like find like, oh, like between Milan and Florence and Verona, I'd have been like Rome. Or like France would have been like Paris, instead of these like fringe cities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, something to keep in mind for the future. Rachel, it was really great talking to you today. Where can some of our listeners find you if they want to see what else you have going on?
Yeah, my Instagram, it's just my name, Rachel Rosette. I have a lot of stuff on there, which more clothes, I promise. All the clothes that they didn't get to see on the show, you can see them on my Instagram page. That's pretty that and YouTube, but I'm pretty active just on Instagram.
Great. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for talking with us today.
It was so nice talking to you, Mary and Sasha.
Thank you.
Bye.
This is RHAP. We know reality TV.